So hello. Wonderful. So here we go. So this is a session on the DNA of successful products and continuous innovation. I'm a true Agilist. I'm a lifelong learner, and a lot of the theories, the sort of ideology, the practices, and all these things that I'm sharing are part of my lifelong ambition to strive for continuous improvement and find better ways to innovate and create awesome products. So feel free to be truly agile, be free to be open, transparent, ask questions, and we'll go through like that. I promise I'll only cry once it's all over. So there we are. So I'm Stuart Young. I usually shackled to the drawing board at Experience Agile. Has anyone been to the Experience Agile before 2020? So a few, so let's see. So usually at the front, they're drawing away, locked to the drawing board. But this time, sadly, I'm not taking in the beautiful Lisbon sun, and I'm here. But I'm missing that. But today I'm taking on the role of the trainer for this workshop. But I'm very, very passionate about all things visual thinking. And I'll be presenting some examples and actually getting you guys, if you can grab a pen and paper as well, to be running a little exercise on why visual thinking is so powerful in the business space, why it helps us in the world of agility, and why it also helps us in the world of innovation. So a little bit on that. I'm very passionate about all these different things, and a lot of my thinking and principles comes from listening to other pioneers, listening to thought leaders from across the globe. So a lot of the stuff I'll be talking about is based on a lot of the learnings from my time hosting the Business Agility Conference earlier this year in March, before this very disruptive thing called COVID. So that's me. At this stage, I'm also going to throw over to the awesome Rob Hill, who works with me in a company called RadTac. I'm the innovation practice lead at RadTac. We focus on agility, scaling practice, as well as business agility and lean agile practices. And I run the innovation practice, talking about building the right thing as well as building the thing right. And I'm a trainer alongside the wonderful Rob. Rob, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. Hello, Experience Agile 2020. As Stu says, Rob Hill. I also work with RadTac. I'm a trainer as well, and a consultant and a coach. I come from a product ownership background in digital transformation in local government. So innovation is very important to me and always has been. And now I'm a trainer and a coach and a consultant. As part of my armory is to get people to think about innovation all the time in everything that they do, every point of the cycle of a product life cycle and the management of products and the creation of great products. So I'm really here today just to help Stuart out and help answer some questions as well. But I'm sure you're going to enjoy Stuart's session today.
And to slow me down and to say on WhatsApp, slow down, stop being so enthusiastic. Thank you, Rob. And one of the key enablers of innovation is all around diversity of thought, which is another reason why I highly recommend for any of this virtual training or courses or talks, always have a wingman or woman. Thank you very much. So the objectives are to understand how to adopt an innovation mindset. Now, we're always talking about embracing an agile mindset, and I dare say you guys get this already, but there's something really important about embracing innovation, being prepared for innovation and investing in this. It's not just a phase, which I'll explain. It's something that needs to be understood and enacted upon, so that you have a much more proactive approach rather than just reactive to ensuring that your organizations, your businesses, your products survive. Learn how to apply methods of design thinking and visual thinking to validate customer insight, unearth problems, and validate design ideas. One thing I really do want to do is remove jargon. Hopefully there should be a swear box for how many times I mention innovation, design thinking, or agile. let's focus on the why. But there will be some tools and techniques that will support you, and visual thinking obviously being key to that. And something that we come up with, which is called the product DNA. And this is a way of conceptualizing, if you like, how innovation can be sort of sustainable, how we can invest in this. And it's the brains behind a product. And it's all the stuff really that you already use, but it's a case of being aware of that, a level of awareness to what is your product DNA, and more on that coming forward. So this is the template which we've created and compiled as a proof of concept for this principles, for the practices and the things we're talking about today. And if you're on the Slack group, you can download it from there. If you're not, don't worry, you can still get through this session without it. But this is what we'll be making use of. Okay, so why innovate? Why innovate? I've spoken far too long already. I want to hear from you. So maybe we could questions. Put any reasons or any drivers for innovation in chat. But equally, if you'd like to raise a hand, if you would like to speak, that would also be equally awesome. So yeah, we will do, Samuel. I don't have a link to it, but I'll make sure we get it to you somehow. I haven't got a link to it as such, but we'll figure out a way of getting it to you. So any drivers for innovation, please put in chat. And additionally, if you want to raise your hand in the participants area, we can hear from you as well. That would be wonderful. Okay. So looking for your user needs. Okay, perfect, absolutely perfect. There's nothing groundbreaking or there's nothing that's new or revelating here. We need to embrace customer centricity. Another bit of jargon, apologies, but yeah, it's all about user needs. It's also about market trends. Okay, so we'll come to that slight variance in user design and user research and market research, two slightly different things. But user needs is great. Thank you. I cannot believe that we only had one suggestion. You all need more coffee and tea, obviously. So there you go. Brilliant. So I like that. Absolutely. User needs, nice and clear and succinct. Earlier in the year, as I say, I had the opportunity to be the MC at the Business Agility Conference. And I was there alongside the wonderful Marina Alex, who's been speaking this morning, if you've been to any of the talks, and the wonderful Sally Alata. Now, Sally was also at the World Agility Forum on the weekend. So two really awesome business agility experts and life experts. But what was wonderful about these women was that, and what was really good timing, being that's when the pandemic started, was that we were talking, a lot of their talks were around a crisis, dealing with a crisis. Now, both Sally, her quest was the fact that she wanted to bring Sudan's economy up, but to be one of the leading economies in Africa. And she'd watched a lot of problems in Sudan. Equally, Marina Alex, her story of a 20-year-old business trying to survive during a time of conflict and war. Now, they were talking about economies and business agility and all those things that we need to do. But one thing that was really, one of my little pencil's not working, which was very annoying. I'll see if that works in a second. One of the really important things here was that it takes a crisis to obtain a real mindset for change. So this was really interesting. And when we were looking at lockdown and we were thinking about what was happening, what was apparent was that a lot of the talks were saying this, that we're talking about business agility and innovation, but when do we do it? How do we do it? and how does this come about? Interestingly, up next on the stage was the wonderful Angel Diaz Morato. Now, what Angel was saying was that, which was amazing, really, was that he shared with us, was his dad had passed away, and that was a real crisis for him. It was a real crisis, and he shared how he'd pivoted in life to deal with this, and so what he realized was that agility alone is not enough to allow you to embrace change, but resilience is key. And so his talk was really around innovation simulation and crisis simulation, and creating situations in which we face COVID all the time, a world where we're constantly needing to face change and putting us into that fight or flight position. So that's what we were learning from Angel. So really interesting, important, insightful stuff all around the fact that agility alone isn't enough. Resilience is key, but how do we do this is really important. Raise your hand. Is anyone aware of the Fujifilm story? Anyone aware of this? Heard of this? Okay, so we've all heard the Kodak story, which is always getting a bit of abuse. Poor old Kodak, because they didn't disrupt their business model quick enough. They didn't change. Survival is not mandatory, right? There's so many organizations that slip on the side. Now, at the same time that Kodak unfortunately struggled and failed, now they actually pioneered digital photography, but they didn't actually create a product within that market window at the right time, okay? That was really, the market window was small, and they unfortunately missed that opportunity. Now, Fujifilm, however, embraced that change was coming. They were responsive to change, right? And what they did is they realized that they had that part of their business model, the feasibility, I'll come to that in a second, the feasibility of their business model was the creation of film. Now, the antioxidant in the creation of film and the antioxidant used to stop anti-fading, brought on by UV light, is exactly the same antioxidant that helps with anti-aging. So what was really interesting there is that that they were utilizing their same capabilities. So they managed to disrupt their business model, and they create, you may not know this story, but you may know the cream. It's called Astalift. It's not called Fujifilm, not sure that would sell, but it's called Astalift. If you go to many airports, it's up there. It's not cheap, but they've survived. They're under a different brand, but the organization still survives. What a brilliant story. If you've got any stories, please do share them in the group. Whilst we're here, I embrace fast feedback. Could you just put in chat if you can hear me okay? You just put in chat if you can hear me okay. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Brilliant. Excellent. Great. Good stuff. So there we are, Fujifilm. So this is the why of innovation. Survival is not mandatory. We need to continuously innovate, and we need to think about how we can survive. Thank you so much. So it goes without saying that one of the best organizations at continuous innovation and disruptive innovation is Amazon. And it goes without saying that it's not a coincidence that the amount of investment that Amazon make in research and development, which I equate to innovation, has gone up considerably to, in 2019, 35.9 billion. That's 35.9 billion. Now that's pretty amazing, right? So it's an investment. And I think the first message I want to give to all of you is that we don't just go, oh, let's do a bit of innovation, right? It is an investment. It is a sound investment if you wish to survive. So that's really important. And one of the quotes that he says there, we need a culture and an organization that allows us to move really fast. What you'll find that from me is that whilst I'm talking about product innovation, I can't help but think about organizational innovation as well. And it would be great to hear from you guys on that. Once again, I don't know if any of you were listening in yesterday to the key speakers at the World Agility Forum, but there were some really interesting things about operation and innovation, changing the business innovation, and then running the business. And so there's some really, really awesome stuff being said there too. Okay, so diversity of thought. Now, this is what it's all about. Now, if any of you are familiar with agile ways of working, you'll know that Scrum, being one of the most commonly used frameworks, is contained by a sprint, but the 4 key inspect and adapt events are there to embrace diversity of thought. In fact, most of the practices in Agile, estimating techniques, planning poker, story writing, all of these techniques embrace the desire to hear from others. And I think this is the important bit, and this is the second key point to this, is that innovation doesn't just sit in an area of a business. Innovation happens everywhere. Now, Niels Flailing, I love this quote, says that from idea to innovation takes creativity, and creativity is in the hands of your teams. So on that note, I really want you to think now about where you position yourself in your organization. Do you think you have the responsibility to innovate? Or is it others that innovate? The teams should be given the opportunity to innovate, and teams themselves need to make the time and investment. So any product owners out there, when you think about product backlog refinement, when you think about value, when you think about prioritization of value, it's your responsibility to think about investing in innovation and giving the guys and the girls the time to innovate. Okay, really important stuff. So I talk about innovation and creativity here. For me, there's 3 key enablers, and the definition of Scrum is to create environments in which teams can deal with complex adaptive problems whilst being productive and creative. So the creativity bit's really important for me. And I'll keep seeing if I can get some rows of hands. Was anyone at the World Agility Forum yesterday? Just put your hand up if you were. I won't annoy you. I won't ask any questions, I promise. You're safe. Anyone there, just raise a hand if you were there. So I did some, the reason for saying that is I did some live visualization for that. So I'm very passionate about all things live illustration and live drawing, but it's all about making the intangible tangible. If you want to enhance team collaboration, if you want to accelerate learning, and you want to get what's really important, a level of business alignment, which is really key to both business agility and innovation. What's really important is that you visualize the work. So a lot of the stuff that I talk about is in this context. And one of the most powerful ways to get people to think in a diverse way is to embrace visual thinking. And we've got a little exercise on that coming up. So these are the visual tools, the live illustrations that I created at the back of the panels yesterday. So this is visual thinking, and visualization and visual thinking is not just one person's job, okay? It's everyone's. But here you can see that the idea is to get a level of alignment and synthesis from the panels so we can see what's being said and what's being done. And as you can see, there's a lot to be said here for investing in innovation. That was one of the most important drivers at the conference yesterday. And quite rightly so, everyone is responsible for innovation. Now, on that note, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. There we are. On that note, I am going to do a little request to see if I can warm you people up. Hopefully, you've got a pen and some paper nearby. There we go. Ricardo, you're on my screen for some reason. You've got it ready. Good man. What I would like you all to do is I'm going to give you a minute of relaxation. I would like you to draw a picture of a house. A picture of a house. A picture that represents a house. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay, right. Okay, so I'd like you to share, if you wouldn't mind, your pictures. If you wouldn't mind, let's have a little look. I can see, let's have a look. If you are so happy, if you wouldn't mind, can you just share your, brilliant, lovely. Look at these are wonderful. Wonderful. Samuel, I hope you don't mind. I said you didn't, I hope you don't mind. Would you mind just turning your audio on? Samuel Junqueira, I may have your Junqueira.
Yeah, I'm here.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's lovely. All you have to do is say no, and then this will work. But in real life, my friend, do you have a window either side of your door?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Actually, okay. I have.
Excellent. Well, the wonderful thing is that everybody drew really quickly, and you all drew wonderful houses. A round of applause to all of you. But we all draw quite a similar way, and this is because we are conditioned to draw using a universal language, a language which we've used since we were children. Now, I'm not saying that you all draw like children. I'm just suggesting that we all draw in a similar way. So there's a reason for doing that. So first of all, everyone can draw, very important. So when we think about in the agile space, when we need fast feedback, when we think about validating design ideas and prototypes in innovation, please draw. Now I'm going to give you another exercise, and I'm going to give you a minute again, 1 minute, and it's purposefully difficult, but there's a reason behind it. And Samuel, thank you. I'll pick on someone next time, different to you. I would like you all to draw a picture that represents agility, agile. I'd like you to draw a picture that represents the word agile. Oh, suddenly things got harder. Okay. Right. Okay. So on that note then, oh, wonderful. Caesar. I hope I'm saying your name right. Would you please turn on, unmute yourself and talk us through your picture?
This one. Yes. So agility, as in, I don't know, I imagine a guy flying and being really, I don't know, fast and versatile, and yeah, so it's a person with a wing.
I love him, and he's very agile. He's very agile.
Yeah.
Thank you. I like that. Raphael, you've got a very different picture. Let me have a look. Could you please explain your picture? Raphael Basto.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a car avoiding and moving obstacle. Must be agile.
I love it. Fantastic. So these are all great. Round of applause to both of you. I like both of them. They're wonderful. The only downside and problem to this, guys, is that before you drew everything very similarly, and now all your pictures are completely different. You've completely failed. No, obviously not. That's the wonderful thing. So the reason for that exercise is to say that when we're, what I got you to draw then was when I said draw Agile. Agile is in fact an idea graph, which is an idea or concept. So when you're trying to draw an idea or concept, that is an idea graph. So that's very different to drawing a house, which is a pictograph, which is a tangible object. Now, the reason for throwing all that jargon at you is to say that in innovation, we want to embrace diversity of thought. So embrace some of those words and try to unlock some of those, make the intangible tangible, draw stuff, get levels of clarity. So there we are. Please do make sure you make use of that. Right. I'm now going to go back to my screen. There we go. Okay, thank you very much. So there we are. We have our little basics of visual thinking. Great. Okay, so that's the why of innovation. The why: we need to be resilient. Survival is not mandatory. Diversity of thought and bringing innovation to the teams, which is a huge, huge bit of learning from the World Agility Forum yesterday and Saturday as well. Sorry, I say yesterday, Saturday and Sunday. So where are we going with the next bit of learning? Well, we need to balance both discovery and delivery work. So another question to you guys. When in a product life cycle do you innovate? Okay. And let's have a look in chat. When in a product life cycle do we innovate? Constantly, love it. See, you guys are on this. Okay, yeah, when a roadblock is detected as well. I like that. That's very much like the Toyota approach of that swarming. If there's something wrong, let's get it dealt with. And yeah, constantly, whenever possible. I think we're all on the same page here, guys. I'm going to learn as much from you as you will from me. Absolutely. Yeah. Where we detect improvements. I love all of this. This is great. Absolutely. Absolutely. Exactly this. Thank you so, so much. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. You guys might be well versed with Agile, but let's just bring this back into the design thinking space. And I might even get a bit of paper behind me as well. So have a look at that. I'm being responsive to change because my Apple Pencil's not working. So I'm going to draw pictures for you instead. Technology will never defeat me. So if we look at this picture just here, the traditional business thinking approach on the right-hand side, very much like waterfall, right? And this is almost, I'll stop making noise now. Just want to make sure that's behind me. And I'll draw these things up for you. I'll move over to my picture in a second, but for now I'll leave that there. So the original sort of business thinking, very much that project mentality. We just got to get something done. A project manager or program manager requests something, we go off and we do it, we think of a solution. And it's a case of focusing on the degree of doneness rather than an achievement rather than customer satisfaction. So what's really then important is to consider the reasoning behind design thinking, and that is to understand, to work on defining what a problem really is, as well as that customer centricity. So there's an extra sort of area up front, which is this understand phase. So let me grab my pens. Hopefully you can see. So this gives birth to the, if I unshare, it might be easier for you to see my screen. So if you can, I think you can pin me, can you, Rob? Or I can pin myself. Let me know if you can see me okay. There we go. I'll just move this. Oh, lovely, thank you. So in the context of design thinking, let me just make sure you can see that okay. Lovely, there we go. In the context of design thinking, we usually go through a phase of, make sure you can see as much as you can. We go through a define. Forgive me, I was going to make some more space. That you can see that. I just want to make sure you can see this straight on. There we go. There we go. And I will get. That is better. Okay, forgive me. Right. So in design thinking, and don't get too hung up on the words, we're going to go through some discovery. We're going to discover what it is that we need to do, that understand phase. And then we're going to be, through that discovery, we'll be able to define what the problem actually is. We then go through a delivery and a development, and delivery. Forgive me for this, I'm all over the shop. So we discover what something is, we define what the problem is, we do some development, some creation, and then we deliver. And what's really important about this is that we go through levels of divergent thinking and convergence. We diverge. What is it? We embrace diversity of thought. There could be lots and lots of things that we need to discover. And you guys have just come up with this just now. And when we're going through a discovery or understand phase, we're trying to learn more about our customers. But hold on to that, because I'm not just talking about the discovery of our customers' needs. We're also thinking about business needs, okay? Hold on to the idea of viability and feasibility. More on that in a second. So we go through this level of diversity. We then need to converge to identify what is the main problem that we're trying to define. And then we're going to go through some areas of delivery, development. We're going to develop things, we're going to learn, we're going to build, and through creativity and through prototyping to validate design ideas, etc., we're then going to deliver something. Okay, so what's wonderful about this is that it embraces divergent, convergent thinking. But being that this is an agility conference, Experience Agile, does anyone have a little concern with this model? What does it look a little like? Anyone wish to speak?
It sounds like waterfall.
It does indeed look dangerously like waterfall. Thank you very much. I'll buy you a virtual beer. It looks dangerously like waterfall. And this is exactly why I was saying that we need to understand how we can have an innovation mindset rather than just agile. So what I'd like you to do is to consider this not as a waterfall, but a continuous loop of innovation. And if we look at the left loop as building the right thing, which is this discovery, and we look at the right loop as more about the sort of agility, the delivery. Building the right thing and building the thing right. You could end up spending all of your time, which a lot of organizations do, because I dare say a lot of you are agile coaches and consultants, and you've spoken to clients and they self-diagnose. We need 5 Scrum Masters, we need a little bit of SAFe, and we need some agile practices like user stories. Oh, and give us some Java as well, right? The problem is, if you just throw in agility, all you're going to do is be better at maximizing the speed in which you deliver crap, right? If you just focus yourself there. Or we could just spend all the time sat on beanbags in a really trendy, big studio-based area like, you know, I don't know, Nintendo or something. We can sit there with beanbags, with jelly bean and pool tables, and just throw lots of Post-its on a wall and do service design without thinking about delivering anything, right? So it's a trade-off. So it's a balance of both. And what I want you to do is to consider that every product that you're delivering, whether there's a reason for you guys as product owners, product managers, people that work on products, where are you with your product? What is the vision? The vision for modifying a product or creating a new product. Your products are continuously in some sort of life cycle, okay? So what I'd like you to do is to consider that in the middle here, if we take this back to Agile, this is your product backlog, right? And your responsibility is to order the value of the stuff that you're delivering. And your responsibility as product owners, if that were, you know, your focus, would be to support the team to develop value, right? And that is investing in this stuff. Now, what I'm going to go on to say is that innovation doesn't just sit here, it sits here. And it also sits here. So we continuously innovate. So what I'd like you to do is not to think of 2 anti-patterns. The first one, don't think of innovation as a phase. And another practice which I'm not too keen on is what's called dual-baked Scrum. Now, dual-baked Scrum is where you've got 2 teams that sit together side by side, one team focusing on delivery and one team focusing on innovation, right? Remember that the whole idea of Scrum is dependency-free. So what I would say is invest in innovation. Developers, coders, testers, just gain these skills, be T-shaped and invest in human-centered skills, okay? There we are. Lovely scribbly drawing. See, anyone can draw, right? So there we go. 1 point to Stuart, 0 points to a rubbish Apple Pencil that stopped working. There we are. Okay. Any questions on that? Anyone want to raise their hand? It would be good to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, we can leave questions to the end. Thank you. No problem. Okay. I'm back. I get very enthusiastic. There we are. My pencil has 100% battery, but still not working. There we are. Okay. Back in here. So, great. So there we have it. Quite rightly so, as you guys said, you guys are the experts here. Innovation happens all the time, right? We continuously innovate, and that's the point here. So what I don't want you to do is to look at this as sort of a phased approach, but really do think of this as a continuous loop. building the right thing, building the thing right. So that's the sort of key here. And there's something else, a sort of, for me and Rob's really been awesome at coming up with these things. So in fact, if you really hate this, blame Rob. And if you really like it, then you can give me the kudos. That's how this is going to work. Okay, that's how it's going to work. So I can't take all of this. But what I'd say is that there's very clearly another part of messaging here is that innovation happens all the time, but have a different mindset for innovation throughout that life cycle. So what I'd like to do is to sort of explain a little bit about all these things. The product DNA, that bit there, is, if you look at this definition at the bottom here, it says the definition of DNA is that it carries genetic information. We like that sort of organic approach to Agile, right? It has all the instructions that a living organism needs to grow, reproduce, and function, right? Think of that for a second. So whilst we're going to be embracing innovation tools, left loop, right loop, whilst we do that, we need to think about the tools and techniques, the artifacts that are going to support us to continuously know how we can embrace sustainable innovation. Okay, so it's an ongoing thing. I'll make more sense about here. Now, this is just an example of the types of things that me and Rob think sit in this sort of metamorphic state of your product. And bear in mind that as life evolves, much like Fujifilm and Amazon and Apple, what you're finding is that a bit like gremlins, if you feed them after midnight, they grow or they multiply. You might find that from your learning, additional products come out, right? So it's a way of kind of thinking about that. So these are the sorts of things that you may think of in that product DNA space. The first is the heart of product management, right? Now, this is the desirability, viability, feasibility bit. The biggest mistake that people make is that if we're working in traditional ways of working, our focus is predominantly on the feasibility, how do we build it, and the viability, is it viable? You know, economically, thinking about revenue, thinking about risk. And we sometimes forget about the customer. Now, if any of you are familiar with design thinking, you will know that that is the IDEO model of design thinking. And right in the middle sits the sort of innovation. But what I find, and what me and Rob agree on, is that that's actually where the heart of product management sits. So just bear that in mind all the time whilst you're thinking from a product management, product owner perspective. All of the time, think about where your mind is. Are you thinking about the viability? Are you thinking about the feasibility and desirability? You know, that's really important. I'm going to come on to talk about whole product thinking, because there's something to be said for understanding the current state of your product and the future state. Remember, crisis simulation. We have to think about the future. We need to gain hindsight in order to survive. And then here, product visions, artifacts, and ways of working. As you can see, that in order to ensure that this product is going to survive, not only do we need to invest in innovation, but we need to embrace agility. We need to invest in practices that are more commonly used in Agile and more commonly used in innovation. We may also decide to use other frameworks. We might use Kanban. What about the culture of our organization? What are we using there? So that's the ways of working, as well as artifacts like roadmaps, vision statements, personas that may sit on the left loop as well. All these artifacts and tools that are supporting us to make the right decisions, as well as a technique which I'm going to present in a second, which is the business model canvas from a company called Strategize. And on the right-hand loop, these are your measures, right? You know, quite importantly, I'm going to start at the bottom, Outcomes. Outcomes over outputs anytime, right? Outcomes. What are the motivations that your customers want? As you guys quite rightly said, what are the user needs? What are their needs? What are their motivations? We then have outputs. Outputs are the features, yeah? Outputs are the feature capabilities. Now, they're not much like Agile and innovation, they're part of the journey, not the destination. You don't use a phone for a feature. You use a phone because it gives you the needs and the motivations that you need to do what you need to do. So don't think feature driven, be outcome driven. And then value. Now you might think, well, we've talked about outcomes and outputs. Isn't that value? Well, it can be, because value can be perceived as customer satisfaction. But value can also incorporate business value. You know, you may create a product that doesn't actually provide any revenue, but maybe your product gives you opportunities, maybe risk reduction, maybe you learn customer insight, maybe we're gaining ethnographic research, okay? So these are the types of things that we'd have in our product thinking, okay? Remember that if you've got any questions, please be the elephant in the room, ask the question, and Rob will soon grab me and let me know that someone needs some support, or you've got something to share. So here we have it. This is the heart of product management. Remember this. Remember that innovation doesn't just sit by creating lovely prototypes and thinking about customers. We need to innovate from a feasibility point of view. I give you Fujifilm. That is an internal innovation based on their own feasible capabilities and the viability of a business. Now, another thing just to throw in here around the viability is strategic alliances, okay? If you think about Experience Agile as a product or a service, you know, Ugo Lorenko is an awesome communicator, and he has jumped and piggybacked and worked with lots of key partners. And that is what's driven Experience Agile, all of those thought leaders from across the globe. That is part of his business model, if you like. So the business model canvas is very well known. I would recommend highly looking into the work of Strategizer and Alex Osterwelder and reading the book, The Business Model Generation. Now, the business model generation is all about this, how we can innovate. Now, I would say that this is a tool, if you want to write it down on that template, that sits within your product DNA. We need to think about what our value proposition is. Yeah, what is our product? What is our service? What are we offering to our customers? Every value proposition has a customer segment, a relationship, and channels in which we communicate with those customers. We then have internal activities and resources, as well as some key partners, and simply some costs and some revenues, money in, money out. What's important to say here, though, is that this is, if you've not used this, and I dare say you guys have seen this before, it is such a powerful tool, and every product and service should embrace this. It really is rather powerful. And just to kind of overlap this with IDEO's model, you will see that the bottom side of this, well, they all overlap with the value proposition, but the feasibility there, the resources, the activities, and then the desirability being the right side, the customer elements, and the viability being the cost structures and value streams and revenue streams. So we can overlay this, the whole product, this, the heart of product management within the business model. Okay. Now this is a bit of fun. Again, I ask you, has anyone ever heard of whole product thinking? I promise I won't ask you to say anything. Raise a hand. I would imagine that we've got quite a few, got a lovely group here. I'm sure one or two of you may have. whole product thinking. The source was Theodore Levitt and Regis McKenna, but it actually comes from Geoffrey Moore. Well, it was well known, or it was sort of heightened or highlighted more so with the work of Geoffrey Moore and Crossing the Chasm. But what's wonderful about whole product thinking, and if you're familiar with the Kano analysis, it's quite similar in that case. Whole product thinking allows you to think about your current state of your product as well as the future state. The generic state being the sort of the minimum to satisfy your customers. Now I'm going to see if I get any interaction from you guys, because I know you will have been. Has anyone got a Garmin watch? Any Garmin watch people? Just raise a hand. There we go, Raphael. You're in there, Raphael. It's okay. So Garmin watch, right? Garmin watch. I'm a little bit obsessed. So the customer segment for me would be somebody who likes data and running or sport, right? Now, the generic product, okay, a generic product of a watch would be something that's the minimum to satisfy a customer. So back in the day when I used to do swimming, I just want a timer. I'd like to know how long something takes me to run. That would be it, right? That would be generic. Then we've got expected. Now, the expected features are typically found in this type of product. So you would expect of a sports watch, you would expect that you can do different, you can track certain things, that you can identify some sort of metric based on your performance, and that you would assume that you would have different features for different sporting events that you might do. So that takes me to augmented. Sorry, they're the wrong way around there. I do apologise. Augmented is the next one round there. Augmented. And augmented is features that differentiate with a specific product and competitors, okay? So forgive me, augmented should be that ring there. Failure bow, I'll change them for the next time I run this session. Augmented comes first. Augmented are your current products and features that give you that market edge. So I've got some examples. I've reached out to friends in my running club today. Augmented, the feedback was heartbeat measurement on the wrist. So that was augmented. That was a differentiator. Here you go. If you look at this, I've got a little flashing light there at the back. That's my heart rate monitor. So that's pretty cool. I like that. That's a differentiator. It also comes, as Raphael will know, with Garmin Connect. Garmin Connect there. Yeah, very good. It's supported by Spotify, so you can listen to your music, liking that. So that's pretty cool. And important stuff. And then potential. Raphael, please put into chat, what would you like to see what would be a wow factor for you? And anyone else? You're all welcome. What would you add? So have a look in chat. Anyone's got anything? I've got some.
Longer battery life.
A longer battery like that. And I was looking at this as well. In which way can we correlate whole product thinking in Moscow? That's an interesting one. I'll come back to that question. But yeah, longer life, a longer battery life. That's interesting. I like that. Yeah, longer life. And if we're thinking about Kano, that could be like a one-dimensional thing. Like you get this one over that. Battery definitely important. So some of the future ones here. Heartbeat on wrist as reliable as the heartbeat on belt thing that you have here. Not always great, I have to agree. Body temperature, blood pressure and measurements. Well, like that. And somebody was quite upset here. This is interesting when we think about the feasibility element of your products. Someone said the hardware and data is brilliant, right? The stuff that backs it up is terrible. So if you're a Garmin user, you'll know that they had a ransom attack and all of the data was held. So we couldn't use our Garmins for at least sort of a month. So that's a really good point. They weren't thinking about feasibility. The fact that most Garmin watches to update does not do it through the app, but a horrific app called Garmin Express on your computer. So you think about those, maybe these non-functional requirements or those things that customers don't see. Think about the whole thing. I want to go back to a really good question that Rob's answered, and like Rob's answer to this. In which way can we correlate whole product thinking in Moscow? I think you can, and then Rob's put the generic and expected elements of our product are the must-haves, augmented and potential elements. Yeah, I would say the same. If we think about feature releases, if we think about when are we going to release something on our Agile roadmap, and we think about product backlog, obviously there's different levels of prioritization based on what's on your backlog, what's in your sprint, and what's on your roadmap. But if we think of that sort of narrative of must-haves and could-haves and should-haves, I think that's a really good way of explaining that, Raphael. And if that language helps with understanding, then use it in that case. I think what we need to be aware of, and what I'll go on to explain, is that, and again, forgive me for potential and augmented being the wrong way around there. In SAFE, they talk a lot about Horizon 1 and Horizon 3 innovation. Now, we need to continuously look at market rhythms and market trends and ensure that we're innovating and we're modifying existing products for survival. We also need to be thinking about Horizon 3, which is those innovations that are maybe coming up as an investment in the future. So the question to our teams is, are the musts, if we think about Moscow, and a question back to you really, or a question, the question I'd take to you, Raphael, and that you could have with your teams is, are we thinking about musts as far as current product feature capabilities, or are we thinking about the must as an investment of time at the innovation for things that are coming up? Because remember, we want that sustainable pace. All these things blur. Agile ways of working and innovation. One thing we'll learn from Agile is that sustainable pace. So I think that's a really good question. We need to ask our stakeholders, what is our ambition for the first release? Are we going to be focusing on feature capabilities, or are we going to be spending a little bit of time on innovation? And that's where inspect and adapt comes in. That's when we think about within our retrospectives in sprint and our retrospectives as far as a release retrospective, how much time are we investing in innovation? Yeah. One downside I would say when I said SAFE there is they talk about SAFE and there being an inspect and adapt iteration. I would say, there's time for innovation. Innovation happens all the time. That's one thing I would say. So we'll come back to that, Raphael, but hopefully, Garmin Connect app. I was totally oblivious. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to be said for it, but it's so true. I love my Garmin. For my 40th present to myself, 40 years old present last year. And, but yeah, they're right. It's interesting. The interesting thing is when you're brought into a brand, there's some other values that you get, like status and things like that. Some interesting behaviors you get from buying into these things. So there we have it. Whole product thinking allows you to think about your product DNA again. Think about where you're positioning your product currently in that live space and the future state. Okay, thank you. I don't know what we do without you, Raphael. Keep asking questions and saying things. So I keep bringing the best of all these awesome people, right? Just one thing I would say, and write this quote down, or maybe Rob can write it in chat for me. Luke Homan said this: when you think about innovation, think about not a checklist, but tools in your toolbox. It's not a checklist, but tools in your toolbox. You don't have to use all the things that we're throwing at you. And when you do use them, you use them when you think they sit, because they might sit in different places. But this is another tool that I really, really quite like. This is the product vision canvas from Roman Pichler. And if you're not familiar with Roman Pichler, I would say that I highly recommend looking into his work. He's a real advocate for product ownership. Now, here we have a real clear way of identifying our vision, our motivation for creating or modifying, as well as these things here. The question is, right, when me and Rob worked together back in the day, I was an analyst when I first met Rob, and he was a project manager. We were working on some products for local authority, and we used to have to do a lot of prints too, and do lots of project initiation documents and things like that. I dare say this is a lot quicker and a lot easier and accessible. If you can't answer these questions, then you've got a problem with your product. Who is the customer? What's the target group? The needs. This touches on desirability. What problem does this product solve? The product, what is it? This touches on feasibility. And value, this touches on viability. So all these things overlapping all the time. Desirability, viability, feasibility, okay? Back to you. Any other tools and techniques? This is all quite new and new stuff that we're coming up with here. So I'm going to give you a minute just to have a little look, but add in chat, what other things, what other tools or techniques, regardless of agile tools or innovation, roadmaps, project plans, be brave. What kind of tools would you use and that you would distinguish as things that in your context would sit in the product DNA? Put them into chat. Let's learn from each other. Ways of working, Kanban, Agile. For this product to exist, what do we need to do? What artifacts will be our guiding lights? Product visions, product backlogs, using Scrum. What traditional project management techniques should we adopt? This is not an anti-waterfall workshop. SWOT analysis, a wonderful, wonderful tool. You know, external factors, internal factors. I'd certainly put that in there. Okay, great. Yeah, you use visual. Thank you. Brilliant. Add that in there. I agree with that. Brilliant. Totally agree. Right, let's move on. So emergent design and validation. A lot of this stuff, we're continually looking at the same theme in different contexts, right? So feel free to add this into chat as we go through. What innovation tools and techniques have you used and like? So away you go, add that in there. I'm just going to give you a minute. Anything at all, feel free to add it to chat. Anything that you've already used. Oh, great. Fantastic, thank you. Design thinking sessions, lovely. Brainstorming, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Miro is a wonderful tool. I've used a lot of Neural, but these are great collaborative tools. There is no excuse not to embrace distributed innovation. Really good stuff, thank you. Experimentation, love it. Love, love, love. So based on what you've just said there, I'd now like you to think about the slight variance in market research and user research. Now, in this time of COVID, it's really, really quite important. I think it's really, really quite important to think about market rhythms and market trends. Now, if you guys wanted to create an app that would support the world of COVID, I think it would do incredibly well, but you might well know that we're about to hit another spike. So maybe that market rhythm or that trend is coming up, and we'll know when to think about when to deliver something. So that's a really important part of this, is that we need to understand our markets. And there's a slight distinction here. And market research will drive product strategy. More on that in a second, okay? But this market research, that will drive product strategy. Knowing markets, knowing customer market segmentation, knowing with your experience of your current products and services, when you're likely to get sales, when are you likely to get people cancelling products and services, understanding all these things, really important. And that's sort of there, right? And then user research, right? Understanding more about your users will drive product design. Now you could say this stuff sits in the left loop because we're discovering more, and this one sits in the right loop because we're basing it on the current behaviors of our customers. Okay. Now, I was at Experience Agile last year, and I was outed by a member of the extreme programming group, and Cheesy, he's a very good friend, but he said to me, the problem with design thinking is there's a flaw to it. And I said, there's no flaw to this. This is wonderful stuff. There's no flaw to this. And he said, the flaw is the Hawthorne effect. That's the Hawthorne effect. You could write that into chat, Rob, because I have lost the ability to write. The Hawthorne effect is basically the fact that if we know we're being tested, then our behaviors change. Okay, so the Hawthorne effect is the best way to learn from our customers is by delivering products. Don't just go into a corner, into a room doing design thinking. We need to learn from the behaviors of our current customers. That's really, really important. So we need to focus on two areas of innovation and learning, the market and the user. This comes back to another really nice blog that I read from Roman Pichler, right? Really, really interesting. You've got your product vision, the reason for creating or modifying your product, right? And we kind of get the idea of a roadmap, which is how we're going to get there, the implementation. But the middle bit we sometimes forget, and we don't talk enough about in Agile, and that is the strategy. Now, if we think about crossing the chasm, this idea of from like Geoffrey Moore, of the different the life cycle of a product all the way to end of life. At every stage of a product's life cycle, we constantly will need to think about the product strategy, and they're built on some things that are going to be variable throughout a product life cycle, which is key features and differentiators, markets and needs, and business goals. And they will change throughout the product life cycle. Remember Fujifilm, right? Remember Kodak and all those things. So these things are going to constantly change based on those behaviors of customers. Will then encourage us to create new features, and we may have new business goals based on the constraints on our business. So we need to constantly be thinking about that. So this brings me to look a little bit more about the left loop. And by the way, if whilst you're looking at this, you're struggling to see what would sit in each of these loops, right? Left loop, in the middle, or right loop, then brilliant. Because I think the point of this is that it's very difficult to see where innovation sits, okay? Because we're constantly learning and we're constantly unearthing things, okay? But as a way of contextualizing this, we'll be looking from discovery to delivery. So first things first, persona creation, right? Personas are really, really important. There's sometimes a failure to personas. Now, has anyone ever used personas? Just raise a hand. Ricardo, Jessica, I'm sorry to grab you. I hope you don't have to, but if you don't mind, could you talk to me about your experience?
No, not me, please. You said you wouldn't ask anything.
Raphael, it's back to you, my man. You use personas? Raphael, don't leave me now. This is your moment, my moment. You're a one and only speaker. You don't have to. Okay. Just make sure. No, cool. So I just wanted to say that with personas, and here's one I made earlier. With persona creation, just be aware of when to use it. Don't get hung up on. Don't get too hung up on jargon, user profiles, personas, archetypes. All I'd say is that with personas, what our desire is just to learn more about our customers. But what we need to remember is that with like every innovation and never used. Okay, sorry. You're an engineer. Okay, good question. Good. We'll come to that. With personas, you need to know when to use them. And once you've created a persona, they will soon go stale. So you need to constantly use them. If I said that I enjoyed eating peanut butter sandwiches, and I ate peanut butter sandwiches for the next 2 weeks, I'd probably be sick. Our behaviors change, so therefore be aware of our customers' behaviors changes. I'd love to learn more about all of you guys and find out more from what you guys do. But I dare say that you could each and every one of you could tell me that your customers' behaviors have changed during COVID. That things have changed for the better or for worse. None of your customers are behaving the same way they used to. Okay, so your personas need to change. So always update these. If you're working in Scrum teams, have a persona on the wall as a guiding light, much like your sprint goal. Okay, and bear in mind they keep changing. Don't try to squeeze a persona, square peg round hole into your product. Right. Create a customer persona that you think is most likely to use your product, and then try to assess constantly whether you still have product market fit. Wherever possible, always use market research and relative real data. If you're thinking of a new off-the-shelf whiteboard innovation, new product, then think about using market research. If you're trying to innovate an existing product, use data from existing customers. And now we can validate a design idea again. Once again, a strategizer template. And this is the value proposition canvas, which touches on the value proposition element as well as the customer element. And the wonderful thing here, it's so powerful because it's so blooming simple, is that we start with identifying what are the customer jobs to be done. Your customer jobs to be done for attending these sessions is maybe growth in learning, is to learn new things at work, maybe survival at work, maybe trying to help your organization survive. Right, they're your customer job to be done. And then the gains are the things that you would get from doing these things. So I want to learn more, and from doing that, you may get opportunities to grow at the workplace. Opportunities and the gains might be a pay rise, a career ladder, opportunities to do more talks. What would be the pains? Just stagnation, a feel of not learning, boredom, right? And then we think about the product. This is the product could be this workshop, or it could be Ugo Lorenko Experience Agile. What gain creators can he create based on customer gains and customer pains? And these can then become your features drawn on by user needs, okay? So these are really good. And the middle bit is your product market fit. Okay, by the way, tools in your toolbox, not a checklist. These are some of the things that you may wish to use. Now remember, we come into the define stage. So if we're looking at design sprints, which might be very similar to the design sessions you were talking of, the design sprints by Jake Knapp's, he talks about how might we's. Now these are a great space for left loop because we're trying to build the right thing. And these are simply suggestions. By framing your challenge as a how might we question, you'll set yourself up for an innovative solution. So based on knowing some of the constraints, feasibility, viability, and desirability constraints, based on that, we might start thinking about what types of things that we need to do in order to improve. Now, there's the desirability, viability, and feasibility, but this is really about sustainability. Put that into chat, Rob, right? Don't forget the others. Sustainability is important. And the how might we's allows everybody the opportunity to go, how might we do this? How might we improve that? And these are really lovely posed questions that define where we want to go. Oh, thank you. He's good, Rob, isn't he? He's good. Look at that. I thought he'd just understand, but he's going to give you a whole link. Love it. Okay. So that's some of the stuff that you put in delivery. Now, personas could sit in the right loop, because as I quite rightly said, we might want to build a persona to learn more on the left side, but maybe we're testing and validating a design idea or a current product that is out there in the marketplace with an existing product. So that persona may be something you use in the right loop. As with customer journey mapping. Now, customer journey mapping, one of my faves as a visual thinking guru. By the way, visual thinking skills and customer journey mapping workshops are available. There we go. Done my sales pitch. As are innovation workshops. Customer journey mapping is a way in which you can portray your customer's experience with your product and services across major and minor touch points. Now, what's really nice is that what I absolutely love, and I'm going to take breath again, which is never a good thing with me. I'm far too enthusiastic. Could you tell me by raising a hand, and I won't pick on you, I promise. Has anyone ever done customer journey mapping? Yes, no, maybes? Okay, customer journey mapping is brilliant, right? It's simple stuff. And I'll tell you what, the wonderful thing about customer journey mapping is we have an end-to-end view of our customers. So no longer can you have a silo mentality. You can't just think, I'm part of the infrastructure team or the IT department. If we look at Amazon, what are the important things for an Amazon customer? Searching, buying, delivery, and end of care support. They don't care whether you work for the IT department. They want to know how they're going to get their product. So this gives you a cross-business unit view, which is really super important, right? So, that's one thing I love about it. The other thing you can do with customer journey mapping is that you can start incorporating service blueprinting by thinking about the viability and the feasibility constraints underneath. If that's our customer journey, where are our teams situated? What processes are we using? What systems are we using? And we can try, in an ideal world, to create feature teams around features of customers so that we have a heartbeat for our customers. So all of this stuff is really helpful. It's very much like story mapping. Thank you. Exactly. You could map your customer journey along the top. As you know there, Samuel, story mapping is used when we have a workflow. So you could think about a customer journey, think of those high-level features, and then you could slice down into when you're going to release. I love doing customer journey mapping over the top. That's great. I love it. Thank you. And so customer journey mapping could again be left loop, because we're going to map a journey based on how can we improve. By the way, if you ever do customer journey mapping, get a group, split them in half, get one team to think about the as is with all the problems, the current constraints, issues and everything else, and one group to think about the ideal state. I'm talking teleportation. Bring those two journeys together to then think about pulling together a to-be state, right? Where you're bringing it together. And that's a way of reaching for the stars as you keep your feet firmly on the ground. But all of these things prove that you have innovations both underneath the surface and externally. Desirability, viability, feasibility. 9 minutes remaining. Impact mapping. Just another reminder. This is from Gojko Adzik. Just another reminder that we don't really innovate up front, just sat there right on the left side here. We're constantly innovating. Remember the Hawthorne effect, yeah? We're constantly innovating. We think about our vision, our goal. We think about the types of people that are interacting with our product. We think about how they're interacting with our product, their current behaviors, and that will preempt what we deliver. So we don't just make assumptions, we really learn from our customers. That is really, really important. So there we go. And then finally, I just wanted to say, because I do want to raise time for questions, Gabrielle Benefield, who I'll be joining next week for a once-in-a-lifetime CSPO. Rob, if you could share that in the link, that would be great. It's on our website. We've got a CSPO now. Gabrielle Benefield is always been pushing product innovation. She's a bit of a thought leader in the innovation space. And she talks about the Mobius loop, which looks very similar in the fact that it goes through this cycle, but her focus is very much so on options, and it's very much pioneering stuff. Now, myself and Gabrielle Benefield are joining forces next week to do a product innovation / visual thinking / certified Scrum product owner course. So if you haven't been certified, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get all that learning all in one go. That's my plug. There we are. And there we have it. Please take down your actions. There is a lot of stuff being thrown at you. I'm rather enthusiastic, so you're probably like a rabbit in spotlights right now. My Apple Pen died, but we still managed to innovate using a picture on here. That's fine. So on that note, I am going to stop sharing, and we'd like to hear from you guys. And that might just be Raphael, but has anyone got any questions? I do want you to feel safe, so you do not need, let me see where you are, so make sure, there we are. You do not need to speak, but if you have any questions in chat, please share, or if you'd like to raise a hand and ask a question, please do.
Yeah, I have a question. So regarding customer journey mapping, what you said about dividing the teams into different teams and in the end coming up with a final solution. In terms of time efficiency, do you think that's a good practice, or
in a room? In a room, and not just go off. So I probably should have clarified that. When I do visual thinking workshops, I'll get a group. Let's say we've got a feature team or a team that work together. T-shaped, so we've got some human-centered designers, we've got, in an ideal world, developers, testers, the people that make the magic, the people that make the wonderful stuff. You ensure that you've got that group together, and a small team, 3 to 9, ideally. But what we do is we get that group together. We make sure that they're really clear what that customer journey is. And when I say I split them up, I'm talking about a very small time box where they go into 2 groups, they go into two small groups, one group thinking about the current state, and the other group thinking about the ideal state. Now, it's always good to get someone on the ideal state, being somebody who's new to the business, because they are the elephant in the room, they are the child, they are not part of the Borg, and they will ask the silly questions, why don't we do this? And if they're sat on a table full of people that have been in the organization for a long time, they're going to be really bombarded with people saying, we can't do that here. So you have one group doing that for half an hour. You've got one group doing the ideal state, and then you map it out visually and you bring them together, and then you map from the ideal to the as is. You get a lovely 2B, which is more realistic.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. It's really good fun, actually. Really, really good fun. But you make it visual. Post-its, pictures.
Okay.
And the great thing, if you can overlay this stuff with other processes, value stream mapping. Think about lean. I've done customer journey mapping to map the value stream ratio of current processes and identified the amount of non-value add activity. So we can utilize lots of different tools with this stuff. Great question. Thank you. Wonderful. It would be great. I haven't got any type of retrospective tool, so it would be good to put a thumb. If you could just put a thumb up, or maybe what we could do is go true. This has been good for you, or no, it wasn't, or meh, maybe meh for must try harder. You wish you'd gone somewhere else. So meh, they're not so good. but thumbs up or, you know, happy on there. That would be good. That would be wonderful. Please do continue to enjoy this conference. There's lots more to see. And yeah, reach out to myself and Rob if you need to. And Radtac, we're at Radtac. And my Twitter handle is Stuart Live Art. And feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn as well. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you very, very much. I'll hang around just in case there's any more questions. Good to see you there, Alex.
I should make an appearance.
And this is Alex, the famous Alex.
I'm not famous, am I?
Yeah.
Phones in, I don't need them. Well done, Stu. I only got the last 10 minutes, sorry.
Well, there we go. Oh, there you go. We can have a Q&A with the Radtac team. My Apple Pencil decided to stop working, even though it's fully charged.
The best bit I found is that every time I Slack you, I can hear it.
Yeah. Well, my phone went off yesterday during the playback, which is always interesting.
So what happened to your Apple Pencil? By the way, this is being recorded. We could debrief later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. I'll speak to you guys in a minute. And the rest of you, feel free to reach out. Goodbye.
Laters.